everyone, Kat here, your favorite ginger bibliophile. I hope you're all doing really well, and I've got a fun one, hopefully, for you today. We're getting into more story time with Grimm Brothers. And if that's not your thing, check the description box below. I've got all the goodies linked in their playlist down there, including all the cute animals in case nobody decides to visit me, because, that's one of them there. I can get in her cute little facey. Yeah, she's shut up, Mama. It's nap time. Even though as I record this, it's like almost 1 o'clock, and she's already had a nappy time for today. And I see that cute little face. She's fighting it. She's worried that I might eat food and not share. But we're back to the main event. Maybe little man will come visit. He came to visit while I did the tag that I did. I think I'm going to post that up probably by Tuesday. I'll get that all edited up. And he decided to ditch his, guard duty for a little bit for some chest scratches. So we're trying to slowly read through these Grimm Brother tales. I was reading just the ones that are like, oh, I remember this. Let's see how dark it is, how it compares to the Disney version that we all know and love. And they don't have all the Disney tales as a Grimm version. So now we're just starting over at the beginning, and we're going through it, and we'll see what happens. This seems like a kind of possibly strange one. It's the Virgin Mary's child, which I can only guess one way that this would go, but it's Grimm Brothers. So, let's get into it, shall we, and see what on earth this is actually going to end up about. A poor woodcutter and his wife lived at the edge of a large forest, and their only child was a little girl who was 3 years old. They were so poor they could not have daily meals anymore, and did not know how they were going to provide food for their daughter. Yeah, see, this is already definitely not what that title sounds like. One morning, the woodcutter, who was distressed by all this, went to the forest to work. As he began chopping wood, a tall, beautiful woman suddenly appeared before him. She was wearing a crown of shining stars on her head and said to him, "I am the Virgin Mary, mother of the Christ child. Since you are poor and needy, bring me your child. I'll take her with me and be her mother and look after her." The woodcutter obeyed her and brought his child and gave her to the Virgin Mary, who took her up to heaven. Everything went well for the girl there. She ate cake and drank sweet milk. Her clothes were made of gold, and the little angels played with her. One day, when she turned 14, the Virgin Mary summoned her and said, "Dear child, I intend to go on a long journey, and I want you to take care of the keys to the 13 doors of the kingdom of heaven. You may open 12 of the doors and look at all the marvelous things inside, but I forbid you to open the 13th door that this little key unlocks. Be on your guard and don't open it. If you do, you'll be unhappy." The maiden promised to be obedient, and when the Virgin Mary had departed, she began to explore the rooms of the kingdom of heaven. Every day she opened a new room until she had unlocked 12 of them. In each one there was an apostle in dazzling light, and she was delighted by the glory and splendor, and the little angels who always accompanied her were delighted too. Now the forbidden door was the only one left, and she felt a great desire to know what was inside. And she said to the little angels, "I won't open it all the way, and I won't go inside. I'll only unlock it so we can peek through the crack a little." You know what they say about what happens to curiosity in my people? This ain't gonna go well. Especially if it's Grimm's. "Oh no," said the little angels. "That would be a sin. The Virgin Mary has forbidden it, and something awful could happen to you. And somebody's daring to be outside." Okay, sorry about that. There was a big old cutie on a freedom run, and little man did not approve of anybody but him being on a freedom run. But I didn't have any luck. I was gonna love on him. But he said, "No, I take myself for a walk. Go away." So we'll try again later. The last cutie on the freedom run was a big old chocolate lab that he was adorable and decided that I was his human and staring down people across the road, because no boys allowed looking over here when he's getting pets from a new chick. But Little Man's like, he might come back again. I gotta chase him off from my comfy perch on top of the furniture in the window. He might be a pampered guard dog. But let's get back to the story, shall we? Oh no, said the little angels. That would be a sin. The Virgin Mary said, it's forbidden it, and something awful could happen to you. So the maiden said nothing more about this, but she could not still the urge in her heart. Her desire kept gnawing and pecking away at her, and gave her no peace. One day when the angels had all gone out, she thought, now I'm all alone, and I can take a peek. No one will know if I do. She looked for the key, and when she got it in her hand, she put it in the lock and turned it. Suddenly the door sprang open, and there she saw the Holy Trinity sitting in fire and splendor. She stood still for a while and looked at everything in amazement. Then she touched the light just a little with her finger, and the finger turned golden. All at once she was overcome by a tremendous fear, and she slammed the door and ran away. The fear would not abate, no matter what she did, and her heart pounded constantly and could not be calmed. Moreover, the gold stayed on her finger. It would not go away, even though she washed and rubbed it as much as she could. King Midas much? Soon after the Virgin Mary returned from her journey, she summoned the maiden and asked her to return the keys of heaven to her. When the maiden handed her the bunch, the Virgin looked into her eyes and said, didn't you also open the 13th door? No, she answered. When the Virgin Mary put her hand to the maiden's heart and could feel it pounding and pounding. Now she knew the maiden had disobeyed her command and had opened the door. Once again she asked, you opened the door, didn't you? No, said the maiden for a second time. When the Virgin Mary glanced at the finger that had become golden from touching the heavenly fire, she knew the maiden had sinned. Didn't you? She asked the third time. No, the maiden replied for a third time. Then the Virgin Mary said, you've disobeyed me, and you've even lied. You are no longer worthy to stay in heaven. The maiden sank then into a deep sleep, and when she awoke, she was lying on earth in the middle of a wilderness. She wanted to cry out, but she could not utter a sound. She jumped up and wanted to run away, but wherever she turned, she encountered thick hedges of thorns and could not make her way through them. She was imprisoned in this desolate spot and had to make a hollow old tree her dwelling place. When the night came, she crawled inside and fell asleep. If it rained and there was stormy weather, she found shelter there. But it was a miserable life, and whenever she thought about how beautiful it had been in heaven, and how the angels had played with her, she shed bitter tears. Roots and wild berries were her only food, and she went out looking for them as far as she could walk. In the fall, she gathered the nuts and leaves that fell to the ground and carried them into the hollow tree. The nuts were her food in the winter, and when snow and ice came, she crawled into the leaves like a poor little animal so she would not freeze. Before long, her clothes became tattered, and one piece after the other fell off her body. As soon as the sun began to shine again, she went out and sat in front of the tree. Her long hair covered her on all sides like a cloak. She spent year after year like this and felt sorrow and misery of the world. One day, when the trees were fresh and green again, the king of the country came to hunt in the forest and began chasing a deer. When it fled into the bushes that surrounded the maiden's dwelling spot in the forest, he got off his horse, pulled the bushes apart, and cut a path for himself with his sword. When he finally got through, he saw a wonderful-looking maiden sitting under a tree, and her golden hair covered her down to her toes. He stood still and gazed at her full of amazement. Then he addressed her and said, "Who are you? Why are you sitting in this desolate spot?" However, she did not answer because she could not open her mouth. When the king continued to speak, "Would you like to come to my castle with me?" She nodded just a little. Then the king took her in his arms, carried her to his horse, and rode home with her. When he reached the royal castle, he had her dressed in beautiful garments and gave her plenty of everything. Even though she could not speak, she was so sweet and beautiful that he fell in love with her, and it was not long before he married her. When about a year had passed, the queen gave birth to a son. Immediately following this, in the night as she lay alone in bed, the Virgin Mary appeared before her and said, "If you'll tell me the truth and confess that you unlocked the forbidden door, I'll open your mouth and give you back the power of speech. If you persist in your sin and stubbornly deny it, I shall take your newborn baby away with me." So much for sweet love and thing. Tell a lie, I punish your child. The queen was given the power to answer, but she remained stubborn and said, "No, I didn't open the forbidden door." So the Virgin Mary took the newborn baby out of her arms and disappeared with it. The next morning, when the child could not be found, a rumor began circulating among the people that the queen was an ogress and had killed her own child. She heard all of this, but could do nothing to deny it. Excuse me, I think it might be time for my nap. However, the king refused to believe it, and believe it because he loved her so much. After a year had passed, the queen gave birth to another son. Once more, the Virgin Mary came to her and said, "If you'll confess that you opened the forbidden door, I'll give you back your child and loosen your tongue. But if you persist in your sin and deny it, I'll take this newborn baby away with me, too." Once again, the queen said, "No, I didn't open the forbidden door." So the Virgin Mary took the child of her arms and went away with him to heaven. The next morning, when this baby had also vanished, the people said quite openly that the queen had devoured it. Ooh. Yep, definitely nap time. Thankfully, we're almost at the end. The king's counselors demanded that she be executed. However, the king loved her so much that he would not believe it and ordered his counselors to stop talking about it on pain of death. The following year, the queen gave birth to a beautiful little daughter, and at night the Virgin Mary appeared before her for the third time and said, "Follow me." She took her by the hand and led her to heaven, where she showed her two oldest children were laughing and playing with the globe of the earth. When the queen expressed her delight, the Virgin Mary asked, "Hasn't your heart softened yet? If you'll confess that you opened the forbidden door, I'll give you back your two little sons." But the queen answered for a third time, "No, I didn't open the forbidden door." Then the Virgin Mary let her sink down to earth again and took away her third child too. The next morning, when it became known, everyone cried out openly, "The queen is an ogress! She must be sentenced to death!" The king could no longer restrain his counselors, and the queen was brought to trial. Since she could not answer or defend herself, she was condemned to die at the stake. The wood was gathered, and when she was bound to the stake and the fire began to burn all around her, the hard ice of her pride melted, and her heart was moved by repentance. "If only I could confess before I die that I opened the door," she thought. Suddenly her voice came back, and she cried aloud, "Yes, Mary, I did it!" All at once rain poured from the sky and put out the flames. A light erupted above her, and the Virgin Mary descended with two little sons on either side and a newborn daughter in her arms. She said to the queen kindly, "Those who repent their sins and confess will be forgiven." Then she handed the queen her three children, loosened her tongue, and bestowed happiness on her for the rest of her life. Well, dang, that's a harsh way to learn a lesson. And pretty dang stubborn that you're willing to lose all three kids just to keep up a lie. So, yeah. And, ooh, looks like we got another lesson that might also be kind of fun on the next story. Ha ha ha. Yeah, I'm playing with the lighting. I think I like this one best. So, do you have a favorite Grimm's tale? Drop a line, let me know, and I will see you soon. Bye. Happy reading.